In 2003, Lego was just months away from financial collapse. Factories were closing, debt was piling up, and the world's most beloved toy company was being quietly dismantled, brick by brick. They'd lost almost $300 million in a single year. Some employees were crying at their desks, others were packing boxes for good. Analysts were already writing Lego's obituary. It was like watching your childhood go bankrupt. And nobody was more shocked than Lego itself. This was a company that had once defined imagination, that had raised generations of builders and dreamers. So how did it all fall apart? Well, it wasn't just one bad decision. It was a pile of them. Diversifying into theme parks, video games, and clothing lines that nobody asked for, losing sight of their iconic product, and worst of all, trying to be everything to everyone. But just when things seemed irreversibly broken, a quiet strategist stepped in. He was an ex-consultant, barely 35 years old, and he didn't even have a background in toys. But what Jürgen Vig Knudstorp had was a plan to save Lego from the brink of extinction, and to pull off one of the greatest turnarounds in business history. To understand how Lego rose from the ashes and became more powerful than ever, we need to rewind. Because long before the collapse, Lego was something magical. And to see just how far they fell, we first need to look at how they rose. Chapter 1. A colorful beginning. It all began in 1932, during one of the bleakest economic periods in modern history. A Danish carpenter named Ole Kirk Christiansen, recently widowed and barely making ends meet, started crafting wooden toys out of leftover scraps in his tiny workshop. He called his company Lego, a mashup of the Danish words "leg godt," meaning play well. He couldn't have known he was laying the foundation for the most iconic toy brand in history. For the first couple of decades, Lego was just one of many small toy makers in Europe. But everything changed in 1958. That's when Ole's son, Gottfried, made a risky leap from wood to plastic. At the time, plastic toys were viewed as flimsy and cheap. But Gottfried had a vision, an interlocking brick system that snapped together with precision and held tight. That year, Lego patented the classic brick design that's still used today. Suddenly, this wasn't just a toy, it was a creative engine, a system, a universe of endless possibilities. By the 1970s, Lego sets were flying off shelves worldwide. Castles, police stations, spaceships. It wasn't just playtime, it was storytelling, engineering, and imagination all rolled into one. Children could build entire worlds from a pile of colorful plastic blocks. In the 1980s and 90s, Lego reached near-mythical status. It was regularly named one of the most trusted, beloved brands on the planet. Parents saw it as wholesome, kids saw it as magic, and executives saw it as unstoppable. But beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. As the company ballooned in size and ambition, it started drifting from its roots. And those little warning signs, they were about to explode. Chapter 2. The Fall. By the early 2000s, Lego was drowning in its own ambition. The company had grown so confident, so blinded by its own legacy, that it started doing everything except what made it great. Instead of focusing on the simple, timeless appeal of the brick, Lego went into overdrive trying to become an entertainment empire. There were Lego watches, Lego clothes, Lego jewelry. They launched a Lego TV show, video games, theme parks, and even a publishing division. It was a frenzy of expansion, with no clear direction. Internally, the company called it a stretch into lifestyle branding. But from the outside, it just looked like chaos. One by one, these side projects flopped. Lego's core product, the brick, was getting buried under a mountain of bad bets. and the numbers were getting scary. At one point, Lego had more than 10,000 different unique elements in production. That meant thousands of specialized pieces, molds, and materials that needed their own logistics, storage, and quality checks. It was a supply chain disaster. Costs exploded. Distribution slowed. Retailers were confused. Even their licensing deals, which should have been slam dunks, were backfiring. The Harry Potter line didn't perform the way they hoped. The Star Wars sets helped prop up sales for a while, but they came with high royalty fees and narrow profit margins. Lego had become dependent on external franchises instead of building their own worlds. And all of it culminated in the worst financial performance in company history. In 2003, Lego lost nearly $300 million. That's about $1 million per day. Sales were down 30%. The company was hemorrhaging cash, layoffs began, factories were shuttered, offices were downsized. Entire departments were eliminated overnight. Kjeld Kirk Christiansen, the founder's grandson and CEO at the time, stepped down. He admitted he had no clear plan to save the company. And for a family-run business that had prided itself on generations of stewardship, this was devastating. Inside Lego, morale was collapsing. Veteran employees who had spent decades building the brand were now watching it crumble in real time. People cried at their desks. Others walked out with cardboard boxes in hand. The sense of mission, the soul of Lego, had gone missing. And the scariest part? The product itself wasn't broken. Kids didn't stop loving Lego. In fact, whenever the company went back to classic sets, sales held steady. The real problem wasn't the toy, it was the company. Lego had become a bloated, confused machine. A business with too many parts and no central idea holding it all together. At one point, advisors even suggested selling off the toy division altogether and keeping the theme parks. That's how disconnected they were from their own identity. And just when it looked like the end was near, a man with no toy industry experience walked through the front door. He was young, quiet, and analytical, but he was about to make brutal decisions that would upset nearly everyone. Because if Lego was going to survive, someone had to do what nobody else was willing to do: admit that the magic was gone and fight like hell to bring it back. Chapter 3. The Fixer arrives. When Jürgen Vig Knudstorp took over as CEO in 2004, Lego was gasping for air. The company was bleeding cash. It had no clear direction. Morale was in free fall. But unlike previous leaders, Knudstorp didn't try to sugarcoat the crisis. On day one, he walked into the boardroom and said what no one wanted to hear: "We are on a burning platform." If they didn't jump, and fast, Lego was going to burn with it. At just 35 years old, he wasn't what people expected in a corporate savior, a former McKinsey consultant with a background in economics, not toys. No flashy charisma, no warm nostalgia, just logic, data, and urgency. And that's exactly what Lego needed. Knudstorp began with ruthless clarity. First, he identified the core problem. Lego had lost sight of its core. It was trying to be Disney, Mattel, and Pixar all at once. He said no more. Everything that wasn't essential to the Lego DNA was on the chopping block. Theme parks sold, video game studios cut, clothing lines shut down. Over 30% of the company's product lines were eliminated. Thousands of unique Lego pieces, many used in only a handful of sets, were discontinued. The goal was simplicity, efficiency, and focus. Then came the hard part: people. Knudstorp laid off nearly 1,000 employees. He closed multiple factories and outsourced manufacturing to cheaper locations. For many, it felt like Lego was dismantling itself brick by brick, but this wasn't destruction. It was surgery. Internally, he rebuilt Lego's culture around responsibility and results. For years, departments operated in silos. Designers had no idea if their sets were profitable. Now every single product had to prove its worth. If it couldn't make money, it didn't get made. At first, designers pushed back. They weren't used to being told no. But over time, something surprising happened. Boundaries sparked creativity. Instead of relying on flashy new molds and gimmicks, they had to innovate with fewer, simpler pieces. Knudstorp also introduced a new mantra: "Only the best is good enough," a phrase once coined by Lego's founder. It became the guiding principle for everything, from product design to operations. And the shift was working. Within 2 years, Lego posted its first profit in nearly a decade. Inventory costs dropped, margins improved, and most importantly, the bricks were starting to matter again. Knudstorp didn't just stabilize Lego, he gave it a new spine, one made of discipline, focus, and a return to what made the company magical in the first place. But saving the company was only the beginning. Next, Lego had to do something even harder: make itself cool again. And to do that, they'd need to think bigger than bricks. Chapter 4. Bricks before anything else. After years of chaos, Jürgen Vig Knudstorp made Lego do something radical. Stop trying to be exciting. No more theme parks, no more flashy gadgets, no more Lego jewelry. Instead, Lego would focus on one thing: the brick, the thing that made them great in the first place. This wasn't just a branding change, it was a full teardown of the company's priorities. They cut back on big custom parts and pushed designers to build using fewer, simpler pieces. The more pieces that could be reused across sets, the better. Lego returned to the idea that everything should be part of a universal system. One big creative toolbox. Gone were the one-off novelties. Lego dumped nearly half its parts library. The message was clear: versatility over volume. And guess what? It started to work. Core product lines like Lego City and Creator, which had been neglected for years, suddenly exploded in popularity. These weren't based on movie licenses or gimmicks. They were about letting kids create their own worlds from the ground up. No story needed. At the same time, Knudstorp restructured the company's internal decision-making. No more gut feelings. Every product had to justify its existence financially. If a set didn't earn its keep, it was gone. That kind of discipline hadn't existed in years. But Lego didn't just slash, it listened. The company launched an online platform called Lego Ideas, where fans could submit their own set concepts. If a design got enough votes, Lego would make it a reality. This turned fans into collaborators and gave Lego a direct line to what its most passionate customers actually wanted. Lego also paid attention to adult fans. The AFOL community, adult fans of Lego, was booming, and Lego embraced them instead of ignoring them. They introduced complex, challenging builds designed just for grown-ups. It was no longer just a toy. It was a hobby, even an art form. Underneath it all, one truth became obvious. The brick didn't need reinvention. It needed respect. But while Lego had rediscovered its soul through plastic bricks, it still hadn't figured out how to exist in the new digital world. And the next chapter of the comeback would take Lego into a place it had always failed before: screens. Chapter 5. Digital plus storytelling equals magic. In 2014, Lego made a move that had skeptics rolling their eyes. They released a movie, a feature-length animated film about bricks. It sounded like the ultimate corporate cash grab, a 90-minute toy commercial. Critics laughed. Industry insiders called it a desperate attempt to stay relevant. But when the Lego movie hit theaters, something totally unexpected happened. It was brilliant. Not just passable, brilliant. It was funny, fast-paced, satirical, and heartfelt. It poked fun at the very idea of conformity, all while celebrating creativity. Kids loved it. Adults cried in the theater. And just like that, Lego had pulled off the impossible. It had turned a pile of plastic into a cultural phenomenon. The movie made nearly $500 million at the box office. But the real win wasn't the money, it was the message. Lego could tell stories, and stories are what make people care. The success of the movie became a launchpad. Lego began expanding into more narrative-driven products. Their video games, like Lego Star Wars, Lego Batman, and Lego Harry Potter, were no longer just fun distractions. They became full-fledged worlds that kids could play, explore, and then recreate in real life. That was the genius. These digital experiences didn't compete with Lego's physical sets, they supercharged them. Kids would play the game, watch the movie, and then rush to build those same scenes with their own bricks. Lego became a multi-platform playground where storytelling and creativity fed off each other. And adults weren't left out. Lego tapped into its aging fan base with high-end sets, detailed architecture models, massive Star Wars ships, and collector's edition builds. Suddenly, Lego was both a toy and a statement piece. It was nostalgia, therapy, and flex, wrapped in one colorful package. They also embraced YouTube, fan animations, and the growing adult fans of Lego AFOL community. Lego was no longer just for fans, it was made with them. The once fading brand was now a media empire. But Lego didn't stop there, because while movies and games brought the audience back, something else would keep them there. Chapter 6: A Culture of Innovation. Once Lego had stabilized, it didn't rest, it transformed. Because rebuilding a company isn't just about cutting costs or launching hit products, it's about rewiring the culture. And Lego did exactly that. They began with a simple principle: treat your customers like collaborators. Enter Lego Ideas, an online hub where fans submit their own set designs. If an idea garners 10,000 votes, it enters a formal review by Lego's team. If approved, it gets produced and sold globally, with the original fan earning a cut of the profits. That's not just innovation. That's co-creation at scale. Some of Lego's most beloved modern sets, like the Friends Central Perk Cafe, the NASA Apollo Saturn V, or the Home Alone house, came directly from fan submissions. And that told the world, Lego listens. But the innovation didn't stop there. They fully embraced the AFOL, adult fans of Lego movement, realizing that creativity doesn't end at childhood. Lego began developing intricate, challenging models designed for adults. Massive architecture sets, pop culture icons, and collectible series that brought older fans back into the fold. Inside Lego's headquarters, they restructured teams to foster creativity. Designers were given more autonomy, cross-department collaboration was encouraged, and the company doubled down on a culture of experimentation, testing new product lines, storytelling formats, and even materials. Which brings us to sustainability. Lego pledged to become entirely sustainable by 2030. They've invested millions into creating plant-based bricks made from sugarcane and are actively developing recycled materials for future sets. In a world drowning in plastic, this was more than a branding move. It was a moral one. They weren't just building toys, they were building trust. And in doing so, Lego didn't just stage a comeback, it sparked a movement where creativity, community, and purpose were stacked, locked, and interlocked like the bricks that made it all possible. Now all that remained was to look back at the journey. Lego's story isn't just a comeback, It's a masterclass in knowing when to let go and when to return to your roots. They nearly lost it all by chasing too much, too fast, diversifying into chaos, forgetting the magic of a single brick. But through ruthless self-awareness, smart leadership, and a total cultural shift, LEGO didn't just recover, they evolved. Today, LEGO is one of the most valuable toy brands on Earth. Not because they sell toys, but because they sell imagination, collaboration, and creativity. In a world obsessed with screens, LEGO proved that simplicity still wins, that hands-on play still matters, and that reinvention doesn't always mean starting over. It means remembering who you are. They turned near bankruptcy into global dominance, and they did it one brick at a time.